We're behind. They're all fired up. What we got to do? First place, our defense has got to go out there and take the ball. Then when we get the ball, we got to have 11 people that's going to do their job and try to score every time you get the football. If we do that, we'll be all right. Do that, we'll be all right.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Football University with me, Matt Caddell, where we talk everything football-related, NFL, which we have a lot to talk about. Bama in the free agency. Alabama was on spring break last week. I think they start back spring ball this week, and we're going to discuss it. So that's what we do here. And anything that's going on in the football world, this is what we do. We discuss it. Shout out to Mr. Jones in the building. He says RTR. All the fans, student section, hop in the comments. Listen, we're going to get it started here at Football University, here on the CTS-Sports Room page. I got a lot of topics to talk about. It's going to be a lot of NFL thing, kind of like last week since Bama was on spring break. So if you got any questions, comment, please just let me know. I got some notes that I'm just gonna talk about regardless. So we're gonna discuss the shouts out to Lucian, it says road back on time. We're gonna discuss Saban. He had some big NIL comments last week up on DC Capitol Hill. I know we didn't get to discuss it. But we're going to talk about players, spring break training. Some guys, Kalen DeBoer got some big news today. So we're going to discuss that kind of later. But we're going to go on this NFL talk. Shouts out to Lucian. Does a great job. He says, I think Arnold's still one of the first corners off the board. Yeah, I agree. When it comes to Terry Arnold, I mean, his tape is unmatched, in my opinion. Just going and looking at the talent that he had to go up against. I mean, he had to go against Malik Neighbors mainly the whole game, him and Kool-Aid, both of them, Brian Thomas, all those guys going to go get drafted high in the NFL draft. Obviously, going against Xavier Worthy, who ran like a 4.2, Adonai Mitchell, Texas receiving core. You're looking at Texas A&M receiving core. So he locked up and had some pretty good film against a lot of top guys competing in the SEC. So to your point, I do think Terry Arnold goes pretty high. Some of the latest mocks that I have seen, they have the earliest mocks had him going maybe top 10. Maybe you look at Atlanta Falcons at 8. Me personally, I think the first Bama guy off the board will be Dallas Turner. Then I think maybe possibly you look at either J.C. Latham or Terry Arnold. So those are kind of my two guys, just what I'm thinking. But I do think Terry Arnold, it just depends on how the flow of the draft. Now, the big news in the NFL was this kind of, address all this stuff, Justin Fields going to the AFC North with the Pittsburgh Steelers as well as Russell Wilson. I know we discussed it last week, discussing the whole Kirk Cousins talk. Maybe Justin Fields would, be a better fit at Atlanta. I know Falcons fans were kind of up and down regarding it, but it looks like all indication is pointing that Chicago Bears are going to draft Caleb Williams. So I definitely see that. And I think they have the number 9 pick. Now, is there going to be a team that kind of trades up? It's going to be interesting to see. But looking at Justin Fields and kind of how he maybe it was about 4 teams from what I've read that kind of wanted him. But the market wasn't as big as most people would think. So, I think it was a huge, huge win for Pittsburgh Steelers. They're able to pay, get 2 top quarterbacks for pennies on the dollar. I mean, you look at Russell Wilson. Denver still has to pay most of his contract, 37 million, I believe, is going to come out of Denver's pockets. And Justin Fields, they get probably a future quarterback who's still on his rookie contract. And so they get a year to kind of sort it out and see, do they want to pay him that second year and give him that extension. So kudos to the Pittsburgh Steelers GM, Omar Khan. I think he wheeled and dealed over the weekend. Not only trading Kenny Pickett to Eagles, but, really getting a 6th-round pick. If he plays for Justin Fields, it'll become a 4th-round pick. So that just shows you how the NFL is when it comes to quarterbacks. And so I think that's going to kind of help affect the draft. I do think you probably get a run on quarterbacks, maybe 3 quarterbacks, and then some receivers, and then offensive linemen, and then DBs kind of all mixed in. So it's going to be interesting to see where Terrion Arnold goes. I mean, he could be going to your Raiders, Lushan. It'll be interesting to see. But listen, so we're going to shift our gears back to Alabama. Biggest news of the day that I saw, just kind of broke this evening, was Kalen DeBoer, I know Alabama was on not spring training, but they were still training while on spring break. So Kalen DeBoer got the Board of Trustees at Alabama approved this big time contract for Alabama's Kalen DeBoer. He got a 10-year. He's going to be averaging about $10 million a year to be the head coach at Alabama, which is a huge upgrade from Washington. Washington, he was only making $4.2 million. I think he got like a 10-year, $10 million contract at Alabama. So that is huge. Sneaky news. Coach Womack, the defensive coordinator from South Alabama, he got a big extension. He was making about $800,000, I believe, as the head coach at South Alabama. He's got a big raise. He's coming to be the DC at Alabama. He got $1.55 million. OC Nick Sheridan got $1.3. Another sneaky news: Jamarcus Shepard got $1 million himself. So. And Freddie Roach got $1 million as well. So guys are getting paid, and it's some incentives going on. If they win the regular season, they win the SEC, they get a bonus. They go to the college football playoff, they get a bonus. So these guys are getting paid. So shouts out to those guys. Just want to talk about that contract. So DeBoer got the bag, as they would say. So let's go to a few comments. Speaking while we're talking, before we go to comments, Alabama starts back spring practice. They were able to, they practiced 2 weeks ago, had like 3 practices, but this week they get the first scrimmage. On Saturday. It's going to be interesting to see who kind of separates themselves. You know, a lot of the logistical things, you know, this year, quarterbacks having the headset, quarterbacks being able to relay plays through the helmet is going to be different. So it's going to be interesting to see how, you know, the guys play. I'm excited, and I'm glad to see the guys practicing. But last week, man, they were getting it in on the spring training. I mean, spring training while on spring break. I mean, I saw videos from Tim Keenan up in Birmingham where I saw Miles McVay working with Andre Smith, the big man factory. I saw Jalen Milroe working with Jaden Palmer and Jordan Palmer, the quarterback, you know, kind of guru for a lot of these quarterback guys. I think that was huge, and I kind of addressed it. But you know, Drake Kirkpatrick Jr., a lot of guys were working, putting in that work while on spring break. They just weren't going out having a good time, you know, all that good stuff. They were actually putting on the work. So it's good to see the type of mentality these guys have. They seem to have a hunger, a desire of high attainment, whether it's on the field, off the field. In their time off, they're working. So that shows you what type of mindset and character of this team. I think it's going to go a long way on the field. I think they start back practice maybe Wednesday, I believe, or tomorrow. So it's going to be interesting to see that, you know, those guys do not want to lose a step over the spring break. While most people were at the beach having a good time, these guys were at the beach putting in the work. So that's good to see about these guys. So let's go to some comments. Lushan says, fingers crossed, a lockdown corner would be clutch. Yeah, as of right now, I believe the Oakland Raiders have not the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders have the number 13 pick. I would think they would go cornerback, but you know, like I said, I think it's going to be a run of some offensive linemen in this draft. I think it's could possibly easily be 8 offensive linemen going in the first round. You're looking at guys like Olu Fashuno, Joe Alt, the offensive lineman from Notre Dame, Fuaga. You got a lot of offensive linemen. J.C. Latham. It's going to be a lot of offensive linemen. Now, certain mock drafts I have seen are, you know, a lot of people might say Anarius Mims from Georgia, he performed really well, but he doesn't have the games, in my opinion. I think he only started 8 games as a starter. Now, for me, and no knock to Georgia players, but, you know, some of them do great at the next level, but I don't think they compete at the level as high as an Alabama football player, you know, going to the draft next year. I mean, you look at just this past year, who was your rookie of the year? It was William Anderson. A lot of people were saying, oh, it's going to be Jalen Carter. No, it was William Anderson. You know, he got rookie of the year. So you look at Bryce Young, you know, he didn't have much weapons around him, but, you know, he performed very well. So I'm not too high. One of the mock drafts I'm seeing is showing Anarius Mims to the Las Vegas Raiders. And Lushan, I know you wouldn't be happy about that. You'd probably rather have J.C. Latham. I think that's a bit high. But I just don't think Georgia players perform as high as Bama players when it comes to the NFL. That's just my opinion. I mean, you look at all the players that Georgia signed to the Philadelphia Eagles last year, and I think Jalen Carter had a few good games. Who was the defensive end? I forgot what's his name. He was hurt. Ringo, all those guys. I mean, you look at the Bama guys. Eli Ricks was starting. He was undrafted. So it just shows you it's a different – you're getting a different type of Bama player. I think you're getting a more polished product, a better developed product when it comes to the NFL as opposed to Georgia. So if you disagree with me, let me know. But I think think I have the better stats. Alabama players just seem to perform better at the next level. So, but yeah, RTR, Velma Stoudemire, James Knox says RTR. So, yeah, let's get back to Alabama football. So, I mentioned the guys working out over the spring break, and the biggest one that caught my eye, obviously, was Jalen Milroe working out with Jordan Palmer. You know, Jordan Palmer trains a lot of quarterback guys, whether it's, he trains a lot of quarterback guys, whether it's guys getting ready to go to the draft. And we have said this on Football University. You know, I think important for Jalen Milroe to really continue to work on footwork, mechanics of playing, quarterback position, um, kind of getting the pocket awareness, footwork. I think if he gets his footwork squared away, working on his timing, his, throwing different types of throws, I think the sky's the ceiling. Sky's the roof for him, not the ceiling. But yeah, I was so impressed to see him working with Jordan Palmer. That's Carson Palmer's brother. And so just to see him working with him, actually going out and putting in the work on his game, I think that's going to pay dividends for Jalen Milroe moving forward. And sky's the limit for him this year. If he can bring Alabama a natty and really solidify himself in this Kalen DeBoer's offense, it's very creative, it's very innovative, it's very effective, it's going to utilize a lot of weapons, so it puts a lot on the quarterback. I think that's going to be beneficial for Jalen Milroe. If he can iron out the details, continue to work with Jordan Palmer, I think the sky's the limit for this kid. I think he can really separate himself and be lethal for Alabama this year, because a lot of people are going to doubt Alabama this year. But I think the Tide's going to roll kind of in a underdog role this year, because Saban's not there this year. So it's going to be interesting to see. So, yeah, that's just my take on Jalen Milroe working with Jordan Palmer. I thought that was just some sneaky big news from the spring break, seeing that Jalen Milroe putting in that work. So let's get to my next topic. I want to discuss Coach Saban. Oh, let's stay in the NFL. Sorry. Another big news in the NFL. I know we discussed it last week. I was kind of saying, hey, don't be surprised. Everybody was saying possibly does Derrick Henry go to the Dallas Cowboys. And I think I mentioned last week, if you tuned in, I said I was hearing a lot of Baltimore Ravens kind of smoke screen out there. And I don't know if it was smoke screen, but it was smoke. And obviously it worked out. So Derrick Henry had a storied 8-year run with the Tennessee Titans, and he is a Baltimore Ravens. I think that just really is going to be impactful for the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson in the backfield. That is going to be a pretty dynamic offense. I'm quite sure they're going to get rid of Odell Beckham, probably bring in one of these young, talented receivers in this draft. There's so many receivers coming out this year in the draft. So I think they're going to just put a lot of weapons around Lamar. Hopefully they're able to get over the hump next year, which is the Kansas City Chiefs. Unfortunately, they are in the same division in the AFC as Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think, if they could just run the ball with, not having to use Lamar as much, but Derrick Henry, I mean, to me, that is one of the more dynamic duos in the NFL. And so they got me thinking. I wanted to ask you all, I want to discuss this. Who do you all think has the better QB running back duo? Is it Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, or is it Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley? Me personally, I'm going with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. I think that's just so dynamic and how they like to run the RPO, that game. Two explosive guys. I mean, they can take over a game. So shouts out to Derrick Henry. I know Titans fans are hurt, him being no longer in Nashville, but him going to Baltimore. I think the Ravens are putting in a lot of work to really solidify themselves in that division, which is crazy. The AFC North division is going to be probably the most watched or the most competitive division, I think, right now in the NFC, in the NFL. Just because you look at the quarterbacks, you have Pittsburgh, they either have Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. Cincinnati Bengals got Joe Burrow. Cleveland Browns have Deshaun Watson. And the Baltimore Ravens have Lamar Jackson, two-time MVP. So that's a really competitive division. You don't know who's going to win that division now. Is it going to be Baltimore? Is it going to be Cleveland? You know, they've made some moves. They got Jerry Jeudy. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything works out. So other recruiting news, not recruiting news, Bama NFL Free Agency news. Calvin Ridley got the bag going to the Tennessee Titans. And listen, that's going to be a pretty nice duo. You got D-Hop on one, Deshaun Hopkins on one side, and you got Calvin Ridley, two really savvy route runners, savvy receivers, great hands, catch any pass. They're gonna be pretty dynamic in the passing game, I know, for at least now. I'm quite sure they're gonna address the running back in the draft, the running back room. But yeah, I think, listen, the Titans, Calvin really still has it. His route running abilities are, to me, he's easily top three in my Alabama wide receiver route running. Amari Cooper, number one. Number two, I'm going, easily either Ridley or Jerry Jeudy. Like, to me, those are my top three just route runners that were coming out of Alabama under Saban. So to see Calvin Ridley, having him being able to, he had to take a year off regarding when he was with the Atlanta Falcons, the NFL suspension 1 year, he was able to get signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars and get paid with the Tennessee Titans this year. Kudos to this man. He had a really cool quote saying, listen, he's 29, but he feels like he's 25. He felt like he could run with anybody, young guys, old guys, whoever. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see. So shouts out to Derrick Henry going to the Baltimore Ravens. Xavier McKinney going to the Green Bay Packers. He got the bag. Josh Jacobs going to the Green Bay Packers. Calvin Ridley going to the Tennessee Titans. I just saw Bradley Bozeman. He's going to the LA Chargers out there with Justin Herbert. So that'll be interesting how that works. Raekwon Davis, the former Alabama talent product out of Mississippi, big time D lineman. He's going to, he was with Miami. The Dolphins are doing some different things. They traded Christian Wilkins to the Las Vegas Raiders, but Raekwon Davis, he's going to the Indianapolis Colts on a 2-year deal, I believe. So that's just a few names. I mentioned Jerry Jeudy going to the Cleveland Browns. So it's a lot of moving pieces in the NFL regarding Alabama players. But it goes back to my first point, saying that I still think Alabama players are more of a polished product in the NFL. So, listen, I do think Miami are making moves. I know Christian Wilkins, that was big. He was due for a big deal. I think them trading him to the Las Vegas Raiders does free up for Tua to kind of get a big deal regarding his contract. I don't know I don't know what I don't know what Tua's price or contract is going to be, but I think Tua is going to get a pretty substantial. I don't know if it's going to be higher than Herbert's or Joe Burrow or Jalen Hurts for that, but I do think he's going to have a competitive contract. He led the NFL in passing last year. I think the past 2 years. So I know the Miami Dolphins want to solidify having their quarterback, their franchise quarterback for the near future. And I think letting go some guys, let some guys hit the free agent market is going to just all roads leading to it getting a nice contract down there in South Beach with the Miami Dolphins. So let's get to the student section. Lori Caddell says RTR. M. Davis says Roll Tide Roll. Matt hand pink waving. Okay. Don't know what that means, but listen, Roll Tide Roll to you. So I mentioned Derrick Henry. I mentioned Kalen DeBoer. We kind of discussed the NFL draft. Let's go to Coach Saban. Now, I want to discuss Coach Saban because last week Coach Saban he was up on Capitol Hill and they were kind of having a round table with Senator Ted Cruz, athletic director Greg Byrne, really discussing the state of college football, kind of some things that with some congressmen, congresswomen, kind of having a roundtable discussion, kind of more of an informal meeting. But Coach Saban, going out there, I feel like when Coach Saban says anything, it is front page news. He's trending on Twitter because people have an emotional disposition when it comes to Alabama and Coach Saban. A lot of people are always disagreeing with Coach Saban initially because they have so much emotional vitriol towards Coach Saban because, let's be honest, they've probably lost to Coach Saban multiple times. So although they don't want to admit he was right, but other coaches have been saying the same thing. You look at a Deion Sanders, Coach Prime up there in Colorado. You look at a Lane Kiffin. You look at Kirby. We know Kirby's going to repeat everything Coach Saban says. So, a lot of these people from these same fan bases that, really were so upset with Coach Saban's comments, at the end of the day, if their coach said it, they'll be fine with it. But I think it's just they're more upset with the messenger and not the message. And thank you for this comment, Lori Caddell, talking to you, leading me to my next comment. Latest Saban on NIL chatter, and they were saying, listen, Coach Saban was on Capitol Hill with Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, Greg Byrne, and they were discussing the state of college football right now. Nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody, the NCAA does not have any type of regulatory guidelines when it comes to NIL or transfer portal. And Coach Saban was just letting Congress know what his thoughts were about it. And, he had a quote talking about how, Coach Saban, they have the recruits and their families over on Sundays. And I think Miss Terry talks with moms and parents on recruiting trips. And I think the most of the conversation that they're hearing from kids is, how much money are they getting? And Coach Saban had some comments that I don't think people in today's society, people do not read the full context of what somebody is saying. Saban did not say he was against NIL. He's all for NIL. He just thinks it needs to be some rules and guidelines where we're basically not building entitled kids that are just wanting money and not helping them develop at a crucial part of their life at the collegiate level, helping them develop, mature, know how to handle money. We're missing key components where kids are just able to go to the biggest bidder, and it's really hurting collegiate athletics. You got to think. A lot of people are like, oh, Coach Saban, oh, he was paying for players and all that stuff. You can say whatever you want to say, but Coach Saban is addressing a real big problem with the NIL. This money is coming from somewhere. A lot of these schools have collectives. So collectives was when a lot of the big wigs or the boosters, they put money in this pot and they say, hey, coach, go do what you need for his NIL. But none of this is name, image, likeness. Name me one player you see on a commercial where they're using their name, image, and likeness. It's not being used correctly. And I feel like the NCAA passes this legislation a couple years back without any guidelines. So, and I think Coach Saban was just addressing the seriousness, and people, like I said, they hate the messenger. And he was just talking about how things we could do to help improve, where we can still develop kids, they can still get paid and create more value for them while they're being college, while we're still being able to develop kids at the collegiate level, and not having these, I guess, building the sense of entitlement in the collegiate level that kids are going to get like, oh, I'm not playing. I'm just going to go somewhere over here where they're offering me this money. And they're not addressing, like, a lot of football revenue pays for a lot of sports. You got to think, how's it going to help the Olympic sports? Athletic director Greg Bird was discussing this. A lot of football revenue pays for some women's sports, and not only women's sports, but some of the Olympic sports, your soccer, your tennis. How are those getting affected? A lot of people are not looking at that. They're just looking at, oh, what I can do for football. And it's not, you need some type of salary cap. I don't know if the NCAA is going to do anything, but you need some type of salary cap like the NFL, where, listen, you can only get paid a certain amount of money. I think it needs to be, you can get some, but I don't think a kid needs to be riding around in a Ferrari. Because, listen, you're going to have to pay taxes. If you want to get all this money, once I got grown and got my first check and I saw how much taxes I had to pay and came out my check, then something's going to have to give. So, I mean, are we going to put these kids in a lot of financial debt with the IRS? Like, what? I mean, how is this going to go? They're not going to be able to have that car for forever. They're probably getting it on the lease or so. So I just think Coach Saban, he's basically trying to save college football and say, hey, this is some of the things we need to kind of legislate and kind of help get some type of guidelines, some parameters out there. You mean you driving on a road, you have the side where you got the shoulder, you got to have some type of guidelines. And I think that can help save college football. So let me know your thoughts. Let's get Lori Caddell. She's coming with some great, interesting topics. She says, listen, I think there should be a salary cap and something tied to the transfer portal, in my opinion. I agree. I think not only that, we should have salary cap. I think you got to start looking at maybe a trust fund. I think we're talking about the development of kids. I think you need to maybe have some type of incentivize. Oh, you're a 4.0 student. Oh, you maybe get an extra kicker or bonus to go in your NIL trust fund. So when you graduate, you still have this amount of money. It's just I just think it's so many different things we can make NIL work and help increase kids' value, and just instead of using it for, oh, you want to come to my school, you don't care about graduating, I'm just going to write you a check. Like, I think the most important thing is still education for these young kids, because football's not going to last forever. I know it sounds good. I mean, the statistics of guys going to the NFL are very few, it's getting shorter. And then with the transfer portal, I mean, if you're transferring everywhere, you really don't have a if you're not putting together a good 2 seasons worth of film, you don't like a lot of the times the transfer portal, a lot of guys are getting the transfer portal, but you only see the big names that are going to other schools, like a Caleb Downs, like some of the Bama players that are in the transfer portal, but you don't see all the other guys that are not such big names that are barely going to bigger schools. They're going to have to settle for whoever wants to offer them the scholarship, because once you get in the portal, you're basically saying, I'm not going to get a scholarship from this school unless you go back. So it's a lot of things that I think needs to be addressed, and I'm glad Coach Saban was on the forefront of it at Capitol Hill up there in D.C. You know, I don't want to say politicking, but basically politicking, trying to save the state of college football. So it was good to see him up there. Listen, I was seeing Coach Saban in Capitol Hill. Coach Saban is one of the greatest leaders there is. Could he run for president? I'm just saying. I'm just going to throw it out there. He would get my vote for sure. I think he would get all the Auburn fans vote, all the Tennessee fans vote, all the Georgia. He would get all the teams. He'll win the SEC. He'll win the South. He'll probably win the Big Ten. Listen, I think Coach Saban, hey, he's a young 72. He's probably looking younger compared to the guys that are running this year, but I will vote for Coach Saban. It was just good to see him. I trust him as a leader, so I think he's going to try to do what he can to help the people. But it's just good to see Coach Saban up there. I mean, he's a true leader. So, but if he doesn't run for president, I think he will need to be like a commissioner of college football. I think you're looking at the moves from the NCAA. Kind of losing their power, and the colleges are kind of increasing their power. You're looking at the SEC, Big Ten Advisory Committee. They're already trying to work together. And I think what's going to happen, the other three conferences, the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12 are going to join with the Power Five, and they're going to create their own rules regarding NIL, transfer portal, salary cap, and they're going to break away from the NCAA and probably make Coach Saban like a commissioner and probably have an advisory board, kind of like the NFL, where you have the NFL owners, you have the competition committee with coaches, you have the rules committee. I think they'll have all these business rules in effect for the college football, and I think that's where we would go. Now, NIL, I know everybody talks about the big schools, the Power Fives, Alabamas, Ohio States, but what about like your SWAC schools, your smaller schools, the schools? How is that going to affect the schools that maybe don't bring in as much revenue? Like, are those guys like, are we going to, how are we going to handle that? So I think you've got to have some type of salary cap where we can spread the wealth around college football. In my opinion, I would love to have Coach Saban as the leader for that. Luce Shaw says, Saban will be the supreme chancellor of college football. I agree. I think you can't go wrong with Coach Saban, in my opinion. Listen, the guy is so knowledgeable. Listen, he knows. I think he was put in the work to save college football and make it where we can have NIL, we can have transfer portal, but we can have it with some guidelines and some parameters to still make college football passionate, what we love each Saturday during the fall season. We love pulling for our schools. So I think Coach Saban will be the chancellor or commissioner of college football. So I want to get you all's thoughts. So we talked about Coach Saban. We mentioned Jalen Milroe. We discussed some college, NFL news. We mentioned the draft, and I kind of want to just go back. We mentioned Terry Arnold. Now, I do think Dallas Turner, for all you Falcons fans out there, Falcons, y'all did sign Kirk Cousins to a big, I think, 180 million, $100 million guaranteed um, contract for the Falcons fans out there. So rise up to all the Falcons fans. But I will say this, that I do think Dallas Turner, I mentioned this earlier, I do think Dallas Turner will be the first player off the board. And I do think he will be the first. I think he's going to be an Atlanta Falcon. In my most mock drafts that I see is having Dallas Turner at 8 being the first edge rusher coming off the board to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, could the Falcons go defensive end? I mean, cornerback, DB. I think they could, but I think you can get a lot of value in DB towards the later. I think DB's corners won't be coming off the board until maybe 12 through to the second or third round. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. So I do think Dallas Turner will be in the top 10 pick. I think he does go to the Atlanta Falcons at number 8. So all you Falcons fans, y'all are putting together a little squad. I'm not gonna lie. That's gonna be interesting to see. Y'all got Kirk Cousins. Y'all have Bijan Robinson. He'll be a second year at running back. You got Kyle Pitts. Hopefully, you got an offensive system under Raheem Morris as a new head coach. He brought in his offensive coordinator that used to work with up there in Washington when they were the Redskins, no longer the Commanders. So I think they have a lot of familiarity with what they want in the quarterback and what they're trying to do offensively. You got Drake London. I do see y'all going to get some receivers in the second round and get some position players, maybe address the quarterback room. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Falcons, but right now the Falcons making smart moves. Me personally, I just thought Justin Fields would have been more of a bang. You could have got him for the cheap. You could have got your quarterback of the future for the actual cheap. Especially hearing that he went for a 6th-round pick. I was like, man, you get Justin Fields with Bijan Robinson and all these quarterbacks, but I don't know. A lot of NFL GMs weren't feeling the Justin Fields talk, I guess. So, but Pittsburgh, I think they got a great value finding Justin Fields on the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I mentioned Dallas Turner going number 8, the Atlanta Falcons. I do think the next player that will get drafted will be shouts out to Douglas Caddell. He says Roll Tide Roll. Now he's a celebrity, everybody. That's the celebrity right there. I will say this. I do think the next player shifting from Dallas Turner will be either Terrion Arnold or J.C. Latham. Now, the reason I say it might be J.C. Latham, I can see maybe Latham. It might be Terrion Arnold. Like, I just don't know if there's a run. The draft is so I don't want to say finicky. It's just so unpredictable. You never know. Now, I do think it's going to be a run on quarterbacks. I think your first quarterback, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams. I think Jane Daniels is going to be a Washington Commander with Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury. I think that will be good. And a lot of mock drafts have Drake May going to the New England Patriots. I think that probably is, a decent fit for New England Patriots. So you have your run on your 3 quarterbacks. Then people are saying this mock draft I'm looking at Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray. That could make some noise. And then you get your offensive lineman. So in the first 16 picks, you see 1, 2, 3, 4 offensive linemen coming off the board. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It could easily be 10 offensive linemen coming off the board. And I said I think it's going to be 8, but 10's a bit steep. But I mean, football's won in the trenches. Now, I am seeing where J.C. Latham is probably going to maybe be the. I can see him either go. I don't know if he's going to go 13 to the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't in this particular mock draft. I don't see Amarius Mims, the offensive tackle from Georgia. Now he did amazing numbers and all that stuff, but I think he only played like 8 games. And for me as a GM, I don't know if I'm putting forth that type of investment in the first round when I can get a more solidified offensive tackle like a J.C. Latham. And some other guys in this draft. Guyton out of Oklahoma. You can get a lot of big time offensive tackles in this draft. But so I do think, going back to Terrion Arnold, I do think Terrion Arnold is going to be the next pick. And I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see Terrion Arnold smoke around pick 11, Minnesota Vikings. Now, a lot of people are saying J.J. McCarthy possibly going to Minnesota. I actually think Minnesota's going to pick up a quarterback with they traded back into the second and traded back into the first round with the 23rd pick to get who did they trade? I forgot. But either way, they have 2 first-round picks. And I think that second pick they're going to use on a I think that second pick they're going to use on a quarterback. You're looking at maybe a Michael Penix, maybe a Bo Nix that's probably still left on the board later in the first round. Maybe a J.J. McCarthy. I don't see J.J. McCarthy. He's not as high on my board as he might be. I just haven't done – he just hasn't wowed me to put that much investment into a quarterback. I like Michael Penix. I think I like Bo Nix more so than I like J.J. McCarthy. That's just my 2 cents. But if going back to Terrion Arnold, I do think you got to start seeing some smoke with Terrion Arnold at pick 11. Or you can look at pick 12 with the Denver Broncos, pair Terrion one side and have Patrick Surtain on the other side. I mean, you're looking at that AFC West division. You got the Las Vegas Raiders, Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chargers. You're going against some top quarterbacks, and you got to look. Going against Andy Reid's system, you got to have a really good defense. So, listen, having good weapons at the cornerback position, putting a Terrion Arnold, a guy who can play inside, outside, slot, whatever you need to be. He's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. That could be a good move for the Denver Broncos. So I think Terrion Arnold talk is going to start coming around picks 11, 10, 12. I wouldn't be surprised Terrion Arnold goes to the Denver Broncos at 12. And after that, I think the next offensive lineman, like I said, it's either going to be I think it's going to be J.C. Latham. And I'm seeing a lot of Cincinnati Bengals smoke regarding J.C. Latham at pick number 18. I think that's actually a good fit with him. I believe Jonah Williams is at Arizona. I think you can get some more added protection from a solid, really good offensive tackle in J.C. Latham. Since you lost Jonah Williams, I think you can get a really good protection to really help with protecting Joe Burrow in the AFC North division with J.C. Latham. I think J.C. Latham goes picks. I think J.C. Latham could go from as early as, I don't know if the Oakland Raiders are going to pick him at 13. I wouldn't be surprised. But I can see him maybe possibly coming off the board 13 with the Raiders. Saints 14. And like I said, I don't know about the Jacksonville Jaguars at 17. I think they go receiver. since they lost Calvin Ridley. So I think J.C. Latham at 18 is perfect for J.C. Latham. So right there, you got 3 Alabama players possibly going in the first 18 picks. And I think the next player that's going to get drafted, Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think Kool-Aid McKinstry, me personally, is still one of the best cornerbacks, playmakers in this draft. I mean, I know he had the Jones fracture in Indianapolis for the combine, but I think Pro Day's Wednesday, and I think he's going to perform and do all the drills and do 40s and all that stuff, perform for scouts at Pro Day in Tuscaloosa on Wednesday, and I think he's going to do lights out. Seeing Kool-Aid at practice, and I just think Kool-Aid I don't see another cornerback taking on the top receiver like he had to do in the SEC. I mentioned earlier, him and Terrion, they had to face Texas's receivers with Xavier Worthy, Mitchell, all those guys, Texas A&M receivers with Muhammad, Anaya Smith, all those guys. And LSU, I mean, they have already had to face 2 first-round receivers, Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, who I think, I mean, they've got the tape, the film on those guys, and they've been putting in the work. So, like I said, I think Kool-Aid, I could easily see him coming off the board for Philadelphia. The Eagles, they need help at cornerback. Maybe the smoke for Kool-Aid starts at 21 with the Miami Dolphins. But I think the Philadelphia Eagles, they're going to, if they can get their hands on a Kool-Aid McKinstry and see, I mean, his tape is just unmatched. It's just really unmatched. Then you look at the Minnesota Vikings at 23. I think this is prime cornerback positioning for top DBs. The Dallas Cowboys, I think they go in a different direction. But I think for Kool-Aid, I think Kool-Aid either is going to be an Eagles, possibly Miami Dolphins, or Minnesota Vikings. But I think I don't see Kool-Aid falling past 25. I think my money is going to be on Kool-Aid being a Green Bay Packer. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a Green Bay Packer. At 25, I think that's just a perfect fit for Kool-Aid. We know the history of Alabama DBs. They already got at Green Bay. They got Xavier McKinney. If they can get a Kool-Aid in that division, they got Jordan Love offensively. They got Josh Jacobs. We won't be calling Green Bay Packers. We'll be calling them Green Bama Packers because they have so many Bama players. But I think the perfect fit is in that NFC North division with Green Bay or Detroit. Now, if some DBs get past up, I could easily see him going 29, but I don't see Kool-Aid falling that far to the Detroit Lions. I think Detroit Lions just signed Carlton Davis from Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Maybe you think about Kool-Aid with the Bucks, trying to invest that cornerback room. So I do think Kool-Aid possibly – I think Kool-Aid's going to be a Green Bay Packer, Philadelphia Eagle. I don't know what they're going to put him at, but I don't know. I just think him at Green Bay is a perfect fit. Maybe Minnesota at 23. I think Minnesota might go quarterback at that pick, but it's going to be interesting to see. This is what we do here at Football University. We discuss just all different types of scenarios. Laura Caddell, the GM right now, says she's got Rams going for Kool-Aid. Now, the Rams have the number 19 pick. Now, great point. I could easily see that for the LA Rams. But the biggest news, I think they're going to address the biggest news, which just happened last week, I believe. Aaron Donald just retired. So Aaron Donald just retired from his storied 10-year career. Probably one of the best, instant Hall of Famer. I think the Rams are going to address that defensive tackle need with that number 17 pick. Um, that's just me personally. I think they're going to try to address that need, especially with um, not Kool-Aid, but Aaron Donald announcing his retirement last week. I think they have to address that defensive tackle need in this draft unless they address it, in free agency or something like that. Make a trade with somebody and get maybe a really top defensive tackle. Then I can easily see them possibly getting a Kool-Aid McKinstry. But you never know how this is going to go. But Lori Caddell, she's on something. She says rumors projecting him at the Rams. He might be at the Rams. I wouldn't be surprised. I do think you start seeing the Kool-Aid talk from 19 to 21 with the Dolphins, 22 with the Eagles, definitely 23 with the Vikings, 25 for sure with the Green Bay Packers. I think that's just an ideal fit for Kool-Aid McKinstry. But we know Bama's guys got the pro day on Wednesday. I'm looking for those guys to perform very, very, very well. And I think Kool-Aid, I don't see him falling past 29 on the Detroit Lions. So I think Detroit, they might trade up for him, but I just don't see how you do not. Maybe or San Francisco 49ers, maybe they trade up to get some help at the cornerback position. John Lynch, the GM, Kyle Shanahan, they could have used maybe a Kool-Aid in the Super Bowl, but I don't think it was the defense's fault. I just think the 49ers did not score enough touchdowns during regulation to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm excited about the Bama guys on Pro Day on Wednesday. But yeah, I'm glad we went through this NFL draft. I think Alabama will have 4 guys drafted in the first round. Like I said, I do think you're going to have a record or offensive lineman get drafted in the first round. My number is 8. I think it's going to be 8 offensive linemen drafted in the first round. Certain mock drafts was happening at 10. But I think 8 is my magic number. And I think the number for DBs is going to come. Your first DB probably will be Terrion Arnold coming off the board around pick 10, 11, or 12 to Denver Broncos. And I do think Dallas Turner will be the first Alabama player coming off the board at number 8 to those Dirty Birds in ATL. So, listen, I think Alabama continues the tradition and be effective. And it's going to be exciting to see Alabama, like I said, seeing the guys work out, seeing the guys work out over spring break. Listen, it's going to be exciting. So I'm excited for this team. Interested to see how they practice this week. Hear our thoughts on what I'm hearing. What are the birds chirping coming out of that first scrimmage Saturday? So I'm excited to hear that. And where to tune in and discuss it next Monday with me here at Football University on the CTS-Sports Room, same channel, same time. But listen, enjoy football this weekend. It's supposed to get cold tonight, so interesting with the up and down weather. Hope y'all had a good weekend. I hope you had a great St. Patty's Day. We got the Easter season coming up, so enjoy family. Go out there and have a great week. Enjoy your week. And tune back in next week. Thank you all for joining, all the people in the student section, in the chat, Lori Caddell, Douglas Caddell, Lushawn, M. Davis, James Knox, Belma Stuttermeyer, Mr. Jones. Thank you all. Tell somebody about the show next week. Get them and bring more topics. Get in the chat. I love going off what you all say in the chat. So thank you all. Enjoy your week. Have a great week. Enjoy the off season of football, and let's get ready to talk and recap the first scrimmage next week here with me, Matt Caddell at Football University. Have a great week. Thanks.